we need to talk about a moment that may go down in history as one of the clearest warnings America has ever received. Donald Trump walked into a military room, expecting loyalty, applause, and fear. Instead, he got silence. And that silence, that simple refusal to clap, spoke louder than 1,000 boos. For Donald Trump, who has built his entire life around commanding attention, that silence was unbearable. And yet, it revealed everything. Think about Donald Trump's career. From real estate to reality TV, to politics, every stage of his life has been built on crowds, applause, chants, and flattery. He feeds on it. He lives for it. His rallies are designed to function like therapy sessions for his ego. Lock her up. Build the wall. Trump. Trump. That's his oxygen. That's his drug. So, when Donald Trump walked into a room full of America's top generals and was greeted with silence, it cut straight to his core, and his reaction was revealing. He tried to joke. He told them, "Don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that." He tried to force them. If you want to applaud, you applaud. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave. Of course, there goes your rank. There goes your future. In one breath, Donald Trump made a joke, then issued a threat. That's how authoritarian leaders operate. First humor, then menace. He couldn't believe that these generals, men and women trained to salute, to obey, to respect rank, would not clap for him. He was shocked, and that shock tells us everything. Donald Trump has always believed loyalty to him should come before loyalty to the country. And in that moment, he was testing the military. He wanted to see whether America's generals were with him or against him. They gave him silence. That silence was their answer. But it didn't stop there. Donald Trump, standing at that podium, used his platform to paint a terrifying picture. He told them America was under invasion from within. He said the enemy wasn't abroad, it was here. He said Americans who don't wear uniforms are like foreign enemies. That is not just political rhetoric. That is fascist language. Historians have warned us, strong men always create an internal enemy. Hitler had the Jews. Mussolini had the communists. Orban has migrants and liberals. Trump has the enemy within. And when Donald Trump says it, he isn't just talking about policy disagreements. He's branding fellow Americans as enemies of the state. The truth is, there is no invasion. The only invasion was on January 6th, when Trump's own supporters stormed the Capitol. The only enemy within was the mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," waving Trump flags, beating police officers with poles, and trying to stop the certification of an election. But Donald Trump will never admit that. Instead, he projects his crimes onto others. He invents threats. He manufactures fear, because fear is how he controls. And yet, in that room, his words didn't land. The generals didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They didn't nod along. They stood still, professional, and gave him nothing. That silence was defiance. That silence was courage. Then came Pete Hegseth, Trump's loyal soldier and mouthpiece. Pete Hegseth, a former Fox News host with no real command experience, stood before the military and declared the Department of Defense was over. He called it the War Department. He told officers that those who long for peace must prepare for war. He quoted Rome. He glorified combat. He demanded soldiers conform to a fantasy of old-fashioned masculinity. He pushed rules against beards. He argued women must meet the exact same standards as men, knowing that would push many women out of combat roles. He dressed it up as fairness, but the reality was clear. This was a purge in the making. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth don't want a diverse, constitutional military. They want a loyal, obedient military. They want to test who bends and who resists. They want to drive out women. They want to punish anyone who doesn't obey their cultural code. And at the heart of it all is a dangerous truth. They want a military that serves Trump, not the Constitution. Remember what Donald Trump said in that room? If you don't like it, you can leave, but you lose your future. That was not a slip of the tongue. That was a threat. That was a loyalty test. That was a former president telling America's generals, "Obey me or else." The irony here is staggering. Donald Trump's allies constantly rage about so-called unfairness, about how men shouldn't compete in women's sports. Yet here, Pete Hegseth demanded women soldiers compete exactly like men in combat roles. The goal wasn't fairness. The goal was exclusion. Push women out. Narrow the ranks. Tighten control. Replace a professional force with a loyalist force. That is how authoritarian regimes transform their militaries. That is how democracy dies. And Donald Trump isn't hiding it anymore. This is fascism. Plain and simple. He tells us the enemy is within. He tells us only loyalty to him matters. He tells generals their future depends on applause. This isn't about defending America. It's about Trump building a personal army. Governor Gavin Newsom mocked Pete Hegseth after this performance, saying he embarrassed himself by calling himself war secretary. But the danger is no joke. Because behind the clown show, there is a serious plan. Donald Trump is testing how far he can push. He's seeing who will break. He's laying the groundwork to fire demote or exile officers who stay loyal to the Constitution. He's creating space to say, we only want the warriors. We don't want the disloyal. That's how authoritarianism takes hold. And look closer at the silence. Silence has power. Silence is not weakness. In that room, silence was resistance. The generals did not clap. They did not smile. They gave Donald Trump nothing. And in that nothing, they gave America everything. They showed that professionalism still exists. That duty still exists. That loyalty to the Constitution still beats loyalty to a man. Donald Trump looked around that room waiting for applause. It didn't come. He was stunned. This man, who has been cheered for decades, suddenly realized that not everyone will bend, that not everyone will break. That silence was louder than any chant. It told him, we will not bow, and we cannot ignore this. This moment is not a sideshow. This is a historical marker. One day we will look back and say, this was the test. This was the warning. This was the silence that told us what was coming. If history teaches us anything, it's that authoritarians always push until someone pushes back. Mussolini tested the army. Hitler tested the Reichswehr. Chavez tested the Venezuelan generals. And now, Donald Trump is testing the U.S. military. He wants to see if they will bend. He wants to see if they will break. He wants to see if America will give him an army, not a defense department. But the silence was a start. The silence was strength. The silence showed that some lines cannot be crossed. And yet silence alone will not save us. Citizens cannot stay silent. Congress cannot stay silent. Media cannot stay silent. Because if we normalize Trump's threats, if we laugh them off, if we treat them as theater, we will wake up one day with a War Department loyal only to him. Donald Trump is shocked now, but he is also planning. He is laying traps. He is building excuses. He is preparing for the second chance. And if that chance comes, the silence of the generals may not be enough. He will fire them. He will replace them. He will demand absolute loyalty. That is why this moment matters. That is why we must speak. America has a choice. Do we let Donald Trump redefine our military into his personal war machine? Or do we defend the Constitution? Do we stay silent, or do we raise our voices? The generals gave him silence as resistance. But we, the people, cannot stay silent any longer. Donald Trump threatened the military. Donald Trump told them their future depended on loyalty to him. Donald Trump said America was under invasion from within, branding fellow citizens as enemies. Donald Trump tried to turn a room of generals into an audience of puppets. And Donald Trump was shocked when they refused. That shock is our warning. That silence is our chance. If you are watching this, if you care about democracy, don't stay silent. Speak. Share this. Because silence may have protected the generals that day. But now, our voices must carry the fight. Donald Trump was shocked by silence. The question is, will America shock him again this time with the power of our voices, our votes, and our refusal to bow?